Alright, time to set up our virtual environment. Now, there are a lot of things that we must do. First, as we said, we must create a virtual machine that we're going to use. For that, we need the virtualization software and the operating system that we want to install. The operating system that we're going to use will be Kali Linux, as we previously mentioned. And also besides that, we will also need a virtual machine that will host vulnerable web pages that we can attack. And another way that we're going to practice will be through a website called TryHackMe. Now, this website does offer a paid subscription, but we're going to cover things that the website offers for free, just so we can include everyone inside of it. It has really good practice examples of website vulnerabilities. With the combination of vulnerable virtual machine and with practice examples on this website, we will cover most known and most common website vulnerabilities. Okay, let's first start off by downloading VirtualBox, which is the virtualization software that we will use, and let's also download our Kali Linux operating system. Let's start with VirtualBox first. To download VirtualBox, we want to navigate to the page virtualbox.org. It will lead you to this official page of the website, and if you want, you can read through all of these articles and about VirtualBox if you'd like, but right now we're going to see how we can download and install it. As it says, it has a big download button, so let's just click on it, and it will lead us to this page, which will offer us different platform packages based on which operating system you're running. As we can see, the current version is 6.1.18, and the current platform packages that they have are for Windows hosts, OS X hosts, Linux distributions, and Solaris hosts. Depending on your operating system, you want to choose which one you want to install. Since I'm running Windows on this machine, I will click on Windows hosts. It will ask me where it wants to download VirtualBox. I will just select desktop and click save. And as you can see, it will start downloading it right here. Since I already have it, I will just cancel this download. I already have it installed, so I'm not going to do that right now. And while it's downloading for you, let's navigate to the Kali Linux official website, which is at link kali.org, and let's see how we can download Kali Linux operating system. Okay, so we open up this page. It says the most advanced penetration testing distribution. And as with VirtualBox, it has this download button. Let's click on it. And it will lead us to the official download page. Now this downloads page offers the newest release of Kali Linux. Or should I say the newest official release, because you also have the weekly unstable and untested releases. We're interested in the official stable release. Currently it is the Kali Linux 2021.1, and the new version of Kali Linux actually comes out pretty much every 2 months, so if you encounter a newer version of Kali Linux or a newer version of VirtualBox, feel free to download that one instead. Since right now the newest one is 2021.1, I will download this one. Now, we have quite a few options right here that we can choose from. We have the Kali Linux 64-bit installer, Kali Linux 64-bit live, and Kali Linux 64-bit net installer. As well, we have for Apple M1, we have Kali Linux ARM64 installer, we have the live and the net installer, and we also have for 32-bit systems. Now, if you're running Apple M1, you can go with this one. If you're running a 64-bit machine, you can go with Kali Linux 64-bit installer. And if you're in any case, which I doubt anyone will be running a 32-bit machine, but if you do, you can download Kali Linux 32-bit installer. Now, since I'm running a 64-bit Windows machine, I will go with Kali Linux 64-bit installer. If I click on this, it will once again ask me where I want to download it. I will select desktop and I will click save. You will notice that the size of this file is pretty large, it's 4 GB, so it will take some time. Now, luckily I already have it, so I'm just going to cancel this download. You just wait for both of your downloads to finish and then we can proceed. Oh, and by the way, you also have an option to download it over torrent if you'd like. It's completely up to you. Okay, awesome. Now, let's say that you have both of your files ready. If you don't, just pause this video until your downloads are finished. And you should have these two files on your desktop. Let's go with installing VirtualBox first. So to do that, we can double click the installer file. It will open the welcome window. We want to just go next. So we want to go next here as well. And here you can uncheck some option if you don't like. I will just create a shortcut on the desktop and I will leave everything checked and click on next. And here we have a warning that says installing the Oracle VM VirtualBox networking feature will reset your network connection and temporarily disconnect you from the network. Proceed with installation now. So this pretty much says in case you're doing something important over the internet, make sure you finish with that first before installing VirtualBox. Otherwise you might have some internet connection problems during the installation. I will just select here proceed and I will click install. Okay, so here it asks for administrator password. Since I don't have one, I will just click here yes and it will install VirtualBox for me. This doesn't take much time. It takes maybe a minute or two depending on your system, and once it finishes it should open up your VirtualBox. And here is the finish window. We want to check Start Oracle VirtualBox and click on Finish. Let's wait a couple of seconds and here it is. This is the window of Oracle VirtualBox. Now let's do one more thing before we end this video. Let's see how we can create a virtual machine inside of VirtualBox. So this is the official window that we have. We have a couple of buttons right here. And here will be our machines that we currently don't have. So let's create one. Let's create our Kali Linux virtual machine. To do that, we want to click on this button that says New. Click on it. And it will ask us for a couple of information. Name of the virtual machine. And here let's say that we type Kali 2021. Here you can select the path where the machine folder will be stored. Here we select the type of operating system, and since Kali Linux is a Linux operating system, we will select right here Linux. And the version, now this can be a little bit tricky if you don't know, but luckily I'm here to tell you that Kali Linux is based on Debian, so we want to select here Debian 64-bit, or in case you have a 32-bit machine, you want to select Debian 32-bit. Since we downloaded the Kali Linux 64-bit and we have a 64-bit machine, we want to proceed with the version of Debian 64-bit. Let's click on Next. The next thing that it asks us is what RAM memory we want to give to this virtual machine. This is completely up to you. I'm just here to advise you that you should not go below 1 GB of RAM, and 2 GB of RAM is pretty much all you need. You don't need more than this. If you have like 4 GB of RAM or less, feel free to proceed by setting only 1 GB, but since I have more than 4 GB of RAM on my host machine, I can set here at least 2 GB. If you have like 32 GB of RAM on your host machine, you can even increase this up to 4 or 8 GB of RAM, depending on how fast you want your machine to work. Now, I'm completely fine with 2, so I'm just going to select 2048 megabytes, and I'm going to click on Next. Under the hard disk, it asks us for a couple of options. We just want to stick with the one that's already checked, which is create a virtual hard disk now, and we want to click on Create. The hard disk file type will be VDI or VirtualBox disk image. Click on Next. And storage on physical hard disk. Now, this is completely up to you. I'm just going to go with dynamically allocated, and you have the explanation of both of these right here. As it says, a dynamically allocated hard disk file will only use space on your physical hard disk as it fills up to the maximum fixed size, although it will not shrink again automatically when space on it is freed. And a fixed size hard disk file may take longer to create on some systems, but it is often faster to use. So a fixed size is indeed sometimes faster to use, but nonetheless, I'm just going to go with dynamically allocated and I'm going to click on Next. And the last option, I believe, is how much disk size we want to give to our virtual machine. Now, I advise you not to go below 25 to 30 gigabytes of hard disk space. I'm just going to select here like 38, it doesn't really matter. You can give it more or less if you'd like, but don't go below 20 to 25 gigabytes. Otherwise your machine might not work, okay? Now that we selected all of this, we can click on Create. And as you can see, we created our first virtual machine. We have it right here, as well as we have its information on the right. We have its general information, system information, display settings, storage settings, and a bunch of other things that we're going to take a look at in the next video. This doesn't mean that our machine will work. We still have an operating system to install before being able to use this machine. For now, we only created it inside of VirtualBox. In the next video, we're going to add our Kali Linux operating system or ISO image that we downloaded from the official website, and we're going to install it inside of this virtual machine. And hopefully, by the end of next video, we will have a working Kali Linux virtual machine. Welcome back. Just a quick update on the new Kali Linux website. Okay, so they have just changed the downloads section of this page. And how they made it can be a little bit confusing, so I'm just making a quick update video to explain which exact version should you download. So once you navigate to the Kali Linux page, navigate to the download section, and this is the new design. They separated different versions into different categories on this page. Now, since we talked about virtual machines, it might seem to you that we want to go to the virtual machines and download a version from here. But not exactly. For our course, we want to go to the bare metal, click on that, and here we want to download the version accordingly. We select 64-bit or 32-bit depending on our machine. Since my machine is 64-bit, I would go with the 64-bit version. If you're running an Apple M1 chip, then you want to select this one. Since once again, I'm running 64-bit, I want to go 64-bit installer, and it will download the ISO image on my desktop. Awesome. That's all that I wanted to say, and let's continue with the course. Welcome back. So in the previous video, we created our first virtual machine inside of our VirtualBox. Now it is time that we install our Kali Linux operating system inside of this machine. But to be able to do that, we want to change some settings inside of this machine first, before we actually start it. So to access the settings of a virtual machine, we can select the virtual machine inside of our VirtualBox manager and click on Settings. Now, to even be able to install the Kali Linux operating system, we must first add it to this machine, right? And to do that inside of VirtualBox, we must navigate to the storage settings, and under the controller IDE, we want to click on this add icon. And if you didn't see it really well, it just looks like a disk with a plus. Pretty much click on it, and you want to click on this add button right here. Once you do that, you want to navigate to wherever you have your ISO image saved or your Kali Linux image saved. For me, it's on desktop, and you want to double click it. Then you want to select it right here in this small window, and you want to click on Choose. Now under the controller IDE, you will have your Kali Linux image and you will have this empty image. Now this empty image we don't really need, so we can just right click it and remove attachment, and we will be left with just Kali Linux 2021.1 version. Okay, another thing that we want to do inside of the settings is we want to navigate to the network settings, and we want to change the NAT to bridged adapter. Now, if you want to read more about these adapters inside of VirtualBox, you can check out our networking PDF file that we created for this course, and it has an explanation on all of these adapters right here and why we use this one. In short words, we use bridged adapter because it allows our DHCP from our network to give an IP address to our Kali Linux virtual machine, and in this case our Kali Linux virtual machine will be viewed as another device on our network. It will be able to communicate with all the other devices inside of our network, with our router, with a laptop that you might have connected, with your mobile device. But if you have it under NAT, which is by default, it won't be able to do that. So let's just change it to bridged adapter, and under here you want to select the adapter name or the adapter that you want to use. Now, what I found from personal experience is that if you go with cable connection, it most likely will always work. Now, wireless adapters know to create problems sometimes, and they might need some additional drivers installation in order to run. So if you're able to, try going with cable or wired connection. Okay, awesome. These are the two settings that we wanted to change. Once we do that, we can click on OK, and right now we are ready to start our virtual machine. To do that, we want to click on this start arrow, and it will run our virtual machine. Or it will start the installation process of Kali Linux. Remember, it's an operating system, so it must be installed first. Here's the window of our virtual machine, and you will notice if you try to enlarge it, it will pretty much stay the same size. It will have this white surrounding it, but don't worry, it will not stay like this forever. It will only stay like this during the installation. So what we want to do is we want to choose the graphical install right here in this menu. You can also go with the install, but graphical install looks a little bit better. Let's click here, enter. And by the way, your mouse will not work inside of the virtual machine yet during the installation, so you must navigate with your keyboard inside of the installation process. Let's wait for the next step. And here it is. We want to select the language to be English for me. You can choose whichever language you want. The location, it doesn't really matter. I will just select United States, and the configuration of the keyboard. You can also choose whatever you like right here. I'm going to go with American English and click on next. And this installation process will actually take about an hour to finish. So of course this is not going to be an hour-long video, so I'm just going to skip through some longer parts of installation, and I'm just going to cover the steps where we actually have to choose something. I will fast forward the installation so you don't have to sit through a 1 hour video. Okay, so let's wait for the next step. And here is the next thing that comes up, which is configuring the network. So it asks us, please enter the host name for this system. You can type here also anything that you want. I'm just going to type here Kali, because we're installing Kali Linux. Press enter, and the next thing that it asks is the domain name. Here, for the purposes of the course, we don't need to set anything. We can just leave it empty, and we can press enter to continue. Now, a user account must be created. So here, you create the full name for the user. For the purposes of this course, I'm just going to call it Mr. Hacker. Click on continue, and the username for the account that you will use to log in to Kali Linux. The account name will also be Mr. Hacker for me. For you, choose anything that you like. Just make sure that you remember it after the installation. And press enter, and now we need to set the password for the user. Here you type the password, whatever you like, and here you confirm the password. Awesome. Once you do that, you also have an option to show password in clear. I don't really need that, so I'm just going to go on continue. And you can see sometimes mouse actually works, but sometimes it doesn't, so I'm just going to go and navigate again with my keyboard and select the time zone that I'm at. Since I'm at Eastern time zone, I'm going to select Eastern. You select whichever you want, and it will continue with the installation. Let's wait for the next step. And here it is, partitioning disks. Now this might be a little bit harder for you to understand in case you're first time running Linux. Nonetheless, here we want to go with the guided use entire disk. We don't want to go any other option, and here we want to select our own hard disk that we created. So you will probably have only one option here, just select that one and click enter. And at this part, we want to go with all files in one partition, as it says it's recommended for new users. For those of you that ran Linux before, you might also be familiar with /home/var/tmp, and these are just some directories that we get inside of Linux. Picture them as just some already made folders that Linux system gives us after the installation. We don't want to separate any of these. Let's pretend that we don't know anything about this, so we're just going to go with the recommended settings that says all files in one partition and click enter. It will ask us finish partitioning and write changes to disk. We want to click enter. And here it asks us for the confirmation where we want to click yes, so change from no to yes and click enter. And this will pretty much start the installation process of your Kali Linux. Now there will be a couple of more questions during the installation, so I'm just going to fast forward to the next question. Okay, so after a couple of minutes we get this window prompted, so it asks us to customize our own desktop with different settings. So here what we want to do is we want to select all of these that are checked by default, which is desktop environment, XFCE, and collection of tools. However, we also want to check this large option right here. This means that it will also install some additional tools inside of our Kali Linux machine. And the more tools the better. We never know when we are going to use some of these tools, so let's just go and select large and we can proceed with the installation. This next part will take some time to finish. It will take around 30 to 40 minutes to finish, so just sit back, grab something to drink, and I will see you guys when the next question pops up. Okay, so here's the next question. And this isn't really that important to us. It would be more important if we were to install Kali Linux as a main operating system and not as a virtual machine. But let's read it nonetheless. As it says, it seems that this is the new installation is the only operating system on this computer. If so, it should be safe to install the grub bootloader to your primary drive. Warning, if your computer has another operating system that the installer failed to detect, this will make that operating system temporarily unbootable, though grub can be manually configured later to boot it. Now here we want to select yes, because our virtual machine doesn't have any other operating system running besides Kali Linux. So let's select yes right here and let's click on continue. Under here we want to select this /dev/sda and we want to click on continue. And this will pretty much finish our installation. It will take a couple more minutes for this to end, and then we will have a working Kali Linux virtual machine. And here is the last question. It says installation is complete, so it is time to boot into your new system. Make sure to remove any installation media so that you boot into the new system rather than restarting the installation. Since we don't have any installation media, we can just click on continue without unplugging anything or removing anything, and our installation is complete. Now our virtual machine will reboot and we will be able to use our Kali Linux virtual machine. Let's wait for a couple of seconds for our login screen to pop out. And here is our login screen. Our Kali Linux machine is working perfectly. Awesome. Now, here we want to type in the username that we created during the installation, as well as the password that we set during the installation. So I'm just going to go with Mr. Hacker, because that is what I set, and I will type here the password for Mr. Hacker account. This will open our desktop environment. In case you're also stuck like this with a smaller screen, in order to make your machine full screen, you can just lower the screen and enlarge it once again, and this will actually fix the issue in 90% of cases. And now we can see the Kali Linux desktop environment. As I mentioned, and as we already know by now, this is a Linux system. So if you're not familiar with the Linux system and the Linux terminal, command lines, and commands that we will use, make sure that you check out the bonus section of the course where we actually cover Linux basics, where we teach the basic commands, where we teach how we can use Linux terminal in order to execute what we want. Nonetheless, if you are familiar with Linux and with Linux terminal, feel free to proceed with the course. We made our virtual hacking machine, and the next thing that we want to do is we want to create a virtual machine that we will use to attack. Okay, awesome. We finished a big part of setting up our virtual lab, and I will see you guys in the next video. Welcome back. it's time to install the machine that we will use to attack. For this course, I have chosen the OWASP Broken Web Applications project. Why this machine? Well, first of all, it's very simple to install. It takes quite a little time compared to Kali Linux. It will only take us a minute or two to install it. And it also has a bunch of vulnerable web applications hosted on this machine that we can use to target and attack. Now, to download it, we can navigate to the link of sourceforge.net/projects/OWASP-BWA. Under this link, we will have the download button, and then just by clicking on it, we can start the downloading process, which will ask us where we want to save the OWASP Broken Web Application virtual machine. Now, since I already have it downloaded, I'm not going to do that, but I just saved it right here on my desktop. And as you may notice, once you start downloading it, it will take a couple of minutes because the file size is around 2 GB large. But once you finish with the downloading, you will have this zip file right here. So in order to get our files that we need, we must extract this zip file first. After you extract it, you will get a folder like this, and inside of that folder, you will have these files. Now, these are the files that we need in order to create a virtual machine. So let's get straight to creating it. Okay, open up your VirtualBox, and we're already familiar as to how we can start the process of creating a virtual machine. Navigate to Tools and click on New. Now, we get this window that we got for our Kali Linux as well, and here we're just going to call it OWASP-BWA. Now, of course, you can call it whatever you like. I'm just going to leave it with this name, and since this is also a Linux machine, under the type, we want to select Linux. The version of Linux, however, should be all the way down to Other Linux 64 or Other Linux 32-bit. Let me select Other Linux 64-bit, and I will proceed on Next. Under the memory size, you can leave it anything between 512 megabytes up to 1 gigabyte. It really doesn't need any more RAM memory. I'm just going to leave it on 1 gigabyte of RAM, and I'm going to proceed with the next step. This is the part that differs from Kali Linux installation. Instead of going with create a virtual hard disk now, we want to select use an existing virtual hard disk. And under that, we want to go to this icon right here, and we want to click on Add. Once we do that, we want to navigate to where our folder is with extracted files from our zip file that we downloaded. Double click there, and you will have all of these options. Now, the file that we want to choose right here is going to be OWASP Broken Web Apps CL1 without any extension as these ones have. So we want to select this one, and you will notice that its size is also the smallest. Let's select it. Let's double click it again, and let's click on Create. Before starting this machine, I just want to mention a few things. If we go to Settings and we go to Network Settings, we also want to change from NAT to Bridged Adapter, the same thing that we did with our Kali Linux machine. But with this machine, we need to be a little bit cautious because this is a vulnerable machine. It hosts a web page with a bunch of vulnerabilities. So only use Bridged Adapter if you're running this machine in a safe home network. If you're running it in your own network, then feel free to use Bridged Adapter. Don't use Bridged Adapter in a company network or in a public network or anywhere else that there might be untrusted devices. Even though it's a virtual machine, but nonetheless, it's always good to have maximum security as possible. So select Bridge Adapter, under name select the adapter that you want, and click on OK. And that's pretty much it. All we have to do right now is start the machine, and it will start the process of installing all the things that it needs, and that pretty much takes a couple of minutes, not too long. So let's just wait for that. And here it is. After 2 or 3 minutes, the machine is ready to use. Now, you might notice that it doesn't have any display whatsoever. Instead, we get this command line interface that we can use. And it's made like this so that machine can take as little space as possible and it can be made as fast as possible. Of course, in order for us to actually be able to access this command line, we need to log in first. And it tells us down here that we can log in with username root and password OWASP-BWA. So let's type that in. And it will give us something like a terminal. And we can use that terminal to run the commands, the same commands that we can run in a regular Linux terminal, such as ls, whoami, and a bunch of other commands. We can also ping other devices. And it also gives us our IP address right here, which in my case is 192.168.1.4. And this is another reason that we set it to bridged adapter. It gave me an IP address that I can visit from any network device that I have connected to my network. So I'm just going to go from my host machine and type in 192.168.1.4. Now, in your case, this will probably be a different IP address, so you can either check it right here, or you can also type the command ifconfig, which will also give you an IP address of OWASP-BWA. So let me navigate to the IP address of this virtual machine inside of my host machine's browser. And this is the page that it should open up. Here we have many things from training applications to realistic intentionally vulnerable applications. We also have some old vulnerable versions of real applications. And we have applications for testing tools as well as some other things as well. Now, there are a lot of things here. We're not going to cover all of them, but we're going to cover some that are aimed at discovering most common website vulnerabilities. Now that we got it set up, let's also make sure that we can communicate with this OWASP-BWA machine from our Kali Linux machine. So start both of them. We already have our OWASP started. Let's also start our Kali Linux machine and wait for it to boot up. So here is our login screen. Let's log in. And to be able to check whether we can communicate with our OWASP machine, what we can do is we can simply just open our terminal. And by the way, once again, if you're not familiar with terminal, make sure that you check out bonus section on Linux basics. There we teach the basic commands of Linux terminal so you can get familiar with it, and it hopefully will become your second nature. In Kali Linux, to open terminal, we use this icon. It will open up this command line where we can type our commands, and in our case, we want to ping 192.168.1.4. And once again, this is in my case. In your case, it might be a different IP address. So I'm just going to press enter. And if you get an output like this, that means that we successfully pinged this machine. So the connection part is good. They can communicate between each other. And in order to close off this command, you can type Ctrl-C simply, and it will finish with pinging. Okay, awesome. Now that we set this up, the next thing and the last thing that we want to do in setting up our environment is we want to just create an account on TryHackMe website. So that will be a rather short video. We've finished most of our work, and let's create the TryHackMe account in the next video. See you there. Okay, last thing for setting up our environment is creating the TryHackMe account. As I already mentioned, on this website we have a couple of free practice examples that we can use to elevate our skills and to learn even more about website vulnerabilities. But for the start, we only want to create an account, and later on we will use it throughout the course. For now on, let's just create it. So this will be a rather short video. All you want to do is you want to navigate to tryhackme.com. It will open up this page where you want to go on Join Now. Since you don't have an account, you want to set it up right here. So it requires an username, email, password, experience level, and to select that you're not a robot, hopefully. Now, make sure that you use a valid email because it will ask you for verification after creating an account. Once you do that, you can log into your account, and I will do that right now. And once you log in, you should have something like this. Now, after you verify your email, you can go and browse to learn, to compete, and you can check out all of the modules that this website has. So we can go under the modules, which we went to by going on learn, And we have some Linux fundamentals, networking fundamentals, web hacking fundamentals, which is the module that we are interested in for this course. But you also have some other modules that might interest you after. For now on, we're mostly focused on web hacking, so you want to go to that module. And here we have a couple of free exercises. Now, these are the exercises that we're going to touch inside of the course. This is what the platform offers us for free. And we're only going to use what the platform offers us for free. And later on, if you decide that you like this platform, you can upgrade to premium, but for this course, it will not be needed. Under the dashboard, you have some other things, such as how many users there are, what rank you have, and rank is simply just based on how many points you get by solving different challenges in different rooms. And room is something that other people create to make practice examples on hosted vulnerable machines. Once you solve them, you get points. Once you get points, you become a higher rank. So this is just the basic things about the platform. For now on, it's just important that you have an account, and later on we're going to join a room and start exploring different vulnerabilities that different rooms offer us. If you created everything successfully, we are fully done with setting up our environment, and in the next section we can start off with website enumeration and information gathering. See you there. Okay, just a quick break. We have finished creating our environment and we are now ready to start getting into all the website hacking and bug hunting. But there are a couple of prerequisites that you might need to do first in case you're a complete beginner, and now is the best time to do them. However, if you do feel confident knowing the basics of these things, feel free to continue with the next section where we start website enumeration and information gathering. And after that, we dive straight into website penetration testing and bug hunting. However, as I mentioned, we need to be aware of bonus requirements first, and lectures about them will be inside the bonus sections, which are some very basic website development or website structure knowledge. We must know what HTML is, what JavaScript is, and other languages used in web development. We must know what they are for and how we can recognize them. Besides that, we must also be familiar with Linux a little bit. We must know the basic commands of Linux terminal and get familiarized with Linux structure itself. And the last thing is that we must know networking a little bit as well. Nothing too advanced, but we must know some basic things regarding IP addresses, local networks, DNS, HTTP, and so on and so on. All three of these topics we have in the course added as bonus sections. The web development videos and the Linux videos are in video format, while networking theory we offer in PDF format available to download. After you learn and get all three of them done, and you feel comfortable with them, then we can proceed to website penetration testing lectures. Okay, awesome. Just wanted to mention this, and nonetheless, we continue our journey in the next section where we will learn how to enumerate websites and gather as much information about them as we can.